Hello again, everyone. I'd like to talk a little bit about the sad, unfortunate case of Otto Warmbier. I guess that's how you pronounce his name. Here's his picture here. Young man, only 21. On in December of 2015, right around Christmas, he went to Beijing on a trip. He was a student at the University of Virginia. And I went to Beijing, and they were putting together a tour of North Korea. So he signed up for the tour, 5 days in Pyongyang. And got to Pyongyang, a couple days, whatever, and on January 1st, in the middle of the night, he snuck out of his area where he was and into a off area that was off limits, into a hallway, and took down a banner off the wall, intending to steal it. And the banner was, I have a picture here. It's in English, of course. "Let's arm ourselves strongly with Kim Jong-il's patriotism." And every year the government releases 200 or 300 approved slogans. And then people make banners of these things and plaster them all over the place. And they're usually innocuous stuff. You know, cheerleader, rah, rah, rah. What you'd see in the break room of any large corporation. You know, the same stuff. He took down the banner. Unfortunately, it had, you know, you're not supposed to get out of your area that's restricted, and then you're not supposed to steal stuff. But the real sin was that the banner had Kim Jong-il's name on it. And for North Koreans, that's equivalent to desecrating the Quran. You know, or for us Christians, it'd be tearing up a Bible. You don't do that. The names of the leaders, Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, are sacrosanct. Anything that has their image or their name on it is to be treated with respect and reverence. That's their belief system. You have to respect it. If you're in the country, you got to respect that. So he took the banner, and he was caught. They caught him on a surveillance camera. Here's a picture of it here. And they busted him, and they got him as he was leaving in the airport. They pulled him aside, took him into another room, and arrested him. And he was put on trial in March and confessed. Very emotional thing for him. And they sentenced him to 15 years reeducation labor. And he cried, he pleaded, he apologized, he groveled, he did the full kowtow, did everything, still got the 15 years. And no one heard anything from him. That was a year ago, last March. No one heard anything from him. The Obama administration did nothing to try to find out what's going on. And then just a little while ago, just a couple of weeks ago, the North Koreans said basically, come and get him. He's in a coma. He has botulism and something to do with a sleeping pill. Well, only in the very advanced stages of botulism will you go into a coma. Very few people. That happens very rarely. And not to a healthy young 21-year-old man. But he's in a coma. They came and got him. And they flew him back to Ohio. I think it was the University of Cincinnati doctors there looked at his prognosis. Pretty grim. Large parts of his brain have died. There was basically suffered a heart attack, and somehow there was a restriction of oxygen to his brain, and when you don't get the blood to the brain that carries the oxygen, your brain tissue dies. It can happen within a few minutes, which is what happened. So he's not there. He's, for all intents and purposes, unless a miracle happens, it's sad to say, but the young man is no longer with us. And what happened? Well, his father's blaming North Korea. They brutalized him, tortured him. Well, the doctors said they scanned everything, they saw no evidence of any kind of trauma to the body, no healed fractures, no skull fractures, no damage to the body whatsoever. He was well nourished, his skin was in great condition, just wasn't there. So there was no evidence, despite what his father says, there's no evidence he had been physically mistreated. And so what happened? Clearly it wasn't botulism or a sleeping pill. Something else happened. Well, before I get to that and give you my idea of what I think happened, we'll look at another guy, which is a very curious case, something like Warmbier. Now, let me first say that there have been, in the last 20 years, and here's the list right here, in the last 20 years, since 1996, there have been 15 Americans detained in North Korea. It's 15. Of that 15, 5 entered the country illegally. They simply walked across the border. So, I mean, anybody with half a brain knows you don't do that in any country. Even in the U.S., I mean, people do it on our borders, but, you know, it's not a good idea. And then out of those, out of the others, there's been some, North Korea is especially suspicious of Korean Americans who can speak the language. Because like someone like me, who doesn't speak Korean, how can I communicate with anybody and be an effective spy? I can't. But someone who speaks Korean, fluent Korean, could be, you know, it could be a spy. I mean, that's one of the first requirements, you speak the language. So there have been a couple of others. An interesting fellow was Jeffrey Fowl. Here's his picture here. And I'm going to do another video on these people. I'm going to run down the list of the people that have been detained by North Korea. But Jeffrey Fowl is an interesting character. He was busted for leaving a Bible, concealing a Bible in some place where somebody could find it. And they grabbed him for that. It was his Bible. He brought it into the country. And what a lot of people don't realize is that you can bring your own Bible into North Korea for personal use. Just take care of it. Don't let it get out of your, you know, your possession. And if you don't have a Bible and you want one, they'll provide you one. Keep it in your hotel room. They don't have a problem with that. Just don't leave it laying around, which is what Fowl did. So he got busted, and he was in there for 212 days, and they let him go. I forgot how long they banged him up for doing that, but he was let go. He was from April 10th to 8th of November. The really interesting guy who is, you can draw some comparisons with Warmbier, was a young man by the name of Matthew Miller. And Matthew Miller was crazy. Matthew Todd Miller. And to my opinion, he did something that was pretty much worse than Warmbier. Because Warmbier, he could say, look, I was drunk, which he was when he did it. He was drinking heavily. it was a college kid prank, number 2. Number 3, he can't read Korean, so how did he know Kim Jong-il's name was on the banner? You know, they could have, at some point, you know, they could have, you know, given him some leniency. And to my way of thinking, they would have. They gave him 15 years, but they've never kept anybody for very long. These people that do these silly things. People that do more serious crimes, like that can be espionage, they keep a little longer, but not these stupid pranks. And so Matthew Miller, when he first got into customs in North Korea, the first thing he did was tear up his visa and then start raising hell. I want political asylum. And it's going crazy. North Korean guards go running over and go, what do you want? You know, you want drugs? No, I want political asylum. And then Matthew Todd Miller said, well, what I really want to do was I want to go to prison. I want to go to a re-education camp so I can experience what it's like, and then when I get out, I can write about it, how bad it was. North Koreans go, you're crazy. And here's, I'm reading from his Wikipedia page what he said, Matthew Todd Miller said. After returning to the U.S., Miller told reporters he traveled to North Korea intending to get arrested, stating that my main fear was that they would not arrest me when I arrived. Initially, North Korean authorities had refused to arrest him and sought to return him on the next flight. But Miller refused to go. I want to stay here. Miller had brought a notebook into North Korea, incorrectly claiming he was a computer hacker involved with Wikipedia, and having attempted to access a U.S. military bases in South Korea. He later assessed that the material was never taken seriously by North Koreans authorities, prompting them to ask him for the real reason why he was acting stupid. And Matthew Todd Miller was banged up, say from April to November, and then 212 days, and then they let him go. He was convicted or acts hostile to the DPRK when entering under the guise of a tourist. He had traveled to North Korea intending to get arrested. Now that's, in my opinion, way more serious than what Warmbier did. Warmbier simply tore down a poster. Now keep also in mind that North Korea has never physically mistreated any American that they've held in custody. On the contrary, they've taken pretty good care of them. In fact, there was one old geezer, his name was Merrill Newman. Here's his picture here. He was 85 years old. And he went into North Korea with the intention of looking up his buddies, because he had trained Koreans in guerrilla warfare. So during the Korean War, they came in, and these were irregular troops. They weren't wearing uniforms. They're basically terrorists, but they're blowing up military installations, railroad tracks, infrastructure, whatever. Miller had trained these irregular combatants to blow stuff up and assassinate, officers and so forth, just to raise hell. And Newman came in to look these guys up. Newman didn't know that the war was not yet over. Only for some reason, he thought all had been forgiven, like in Japan. No. North Koreans go, wow. But what they did was they took extraordinary care of him, 85 years old. They checked they had a doctor and a nurse with him at all times, and they checked his vital signs 4 times a day. They checked his heart and pulse and all this stuff, to make sure he was okay. And he was released, he was October to December in 2013. So despite what Warmbier's father says, North Korea has never physically mistreated. Interrogation might not have been all that wonderful, but then again, all they're looking for is the facts. Now, Warmbier was forced to write out a confession and confessed all this stuff, and but the young man took it really, really hard. And I think that's what happened, that was behind this. He's only 21, and when you're young, 15 years is a long, long time. That's 75% of your life. When you're young, the years go by really slowly. When you get old, like me, 15 years is like the day after tomorrow, because the years flip by really fast when you're old. And but when he's young, he's going, 15 years. I'll be like 36 when I'm out of here. And 36 is like, it's all over for a guy that's 21, college student, having fun. He gave some story about somebody offered him $10,000 for the poster if he stole it, and then somebody else, if he got arrested, they'd give his mother $200,000, or he'd get a car or something. His story kept changing on that, which was, I don't know why he told the stories. I mean, the North Koreans certainly didn't put these things in his mind. They just wanted some kind of a story, and however you want to tell, it's fine. And they want a confession that you took down the poster. They don't particularly care why. Just, you took down the poster, you did a bad thing, bam, 15 years. And they would have let him go in a year or two. There's no doubt in my mind. They're going to keep him 15 years for doing that. It's not happening. But if I have to speculate, and I don't want to be unfair to the young man, and I certainly don't want to be unfair to his family, but I do think that in his despair, he tried to hang himself, and that was, it's all over, it's done. He wasn't emotionally very stable during the trial, and he tried to hang himself. And when the Koreans saw this, they got him before he died, but when they saw this, they were like probably freaking the hell out. Probably some people who were supposed to be keeping an eye on him was severely punished. The reason why I say that is because the North Koreans, when they sent him home, they sent medical records with him. And they had given him an MRI scan in March, and then they'd given him another MRI scan in July. And both of those scans showed that his brain was gone. So somewhere after the trial was over, and then when they discovered him, so that puts the date when the damage was done in March of last year. And yeah, they found him and they cut him down. And like Aaron Hernandez of the New England Patriots, that keeps coming to mind, his sad case. So yes, he very likely tried to end his life. They found him, they cut him down, tried to save it, and they probably kept him there all this time, thinking they could bring him back to health. And it didn't work. So they also sent quite a few pages of medical tests. The North Koreans had done a lot of medical tests on him, so they sent those along with him. So in my opinion, that's probably what happened. And Warmbier's father said, well, they tortured him and brutalized him. And no, they didn't. That's not their style, despite what people think. Not to Americans. To their own people, it's another matter altogether. So that's probably what happened, and it's really a sad case. And but the young man knew the rules. Those tour guides, those tour companies, they give you a list of things, a prohibited behavior. You're not supposed to do all this stuff. You read it, and then you sign it at the bottom that says you understood what you were reading. So Warmbier knew he wasn't supposed to stray out of his area. And as far as tearing down a poster, I mean, I don't know if that's on the list or not, but common sense will tell you, you know, they say don't stray out of your area, stay with your tour guides. And he didn't do that. It's too bad he had to pay, you know, the ultimate price for that. But, you know, you go to any country and you misbehave, and it's just not North Korea. A lot of countries. You go to China and misbehave, and they don't treat you. They'll treat you worse than North Korea. You know, go to Saudi Arabia and drink some hooch. You know, make your own booze. They'll sentence you to death. You know, chop off your head. You know, they don't take kindly to that stuff. So, whenever you travel, you know, learn the rules, understand the rules, obey the rules, mind your manners. Everything will be fine. So, like I say, it's really sad. I feel sorry for the family and what happened, and you know, what are you going to do? So anyway, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.